Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming to the MACC Policy Board meeting. Today is July 24th, 2017, and we're meeting at the Olive Township Hall. Maybe we'll start with introductions to my right. John?
John Clay, Hicksville, Allegan County Road Commission.
Ken DeWeert, Fillmore Township.
Tom Walters, Olive Township. Kevin Clayster, City of Zeeland.
Fred Nykamp, Zeeland Charter Township.
Jerry Nienhuis, Holland Township.
Howard Bauman, Port Sheldon Township.
Joe Bauman, Ottawa County Commission.
Tom Bird, Ottawa Road Commission.
Sherry Hunsberger, Park Township.
Ed Stilstra, Lake Town Township.
And Russ Desai with the MACC Authority Board.
And David Van Genoven, at large.
Steve Boltice, Director of the MACC.
Pankaj Rajadhyaksh with the MACC. And then we've got a couple visitors there.
Danielle Stack, Ottawa County Planning Department. Shannon Virtue, Ottawa County Planning Department.
Steve Redmond, MDOT, Grand Region.
Leanne Meixel, MDOT with PSC.
Rob Vank with the MACC.
Elisa Hookwater with the MACC. Ellie Goward with the MACC. Carolyn Olstad.
Good. It looks like the MACC staff's all sitting there like judges. They're going to pass something on us when we're done. Next thing we have is approval of the minutes from our last meeting at the Zeeland Charter Township Hall. If there's any changes or corrections, please bring them up. Otherwise, just need a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Move to approve.
John and Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We don't have any members of the public per se, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
So, up next, we have the watershed project grant updates. Kelly and Carolyn will be leading that. Oh, it's right.
Yeah, to start, we just recently closed out our road stream crossing grant through MyCorps. This is not our first MyCorps grant. We've been happy and really wonderful to have a few other ones through the years. So we closed out this one and sent in our final grant report, so we just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview as well. In your packets, there's kind of a colorful 2-page sheet. And that has, some of the details of the grant as well, and kind of easy to follow away, and it's pretty too. Some of our goals from this grant to establish a volunteer base to complete these inventories. They are quite intensive. You need to usually have at least 3 to 4 people in each group to complete them within an hour time span. So we had an overall volunteer base of 33 individual people. A lot of them were reoccurring. They would come out multiple times with us, which is really helpful. Along with our volunteers, some of those were just citizens, but then a lot of them are also members of the Ottawa and Allegan County Water Resources and Drain Commission offices, and also the road commissions. So that's a really huge help to us. A lot of those members also played leadership roles and were able to be the leader of their group and help the other members, especially if it was their first time, learn how to do the inventories. So thank you especially, yes, to the road commissions and the drain commissions for that help. It's a big partnership that we're happy to have. Also the Outdoor Discovery Center, they helped us as well get the word out, and then also with some equipment. They had some waders that we would borrow from them from time to time, so it was very helpful as well. Another one of our goals was to inventory 58 road stream crossing sites that scored moderate or high for erosion. These moderate and high scores, they came from a 2008 B-High assessment, which is an erosion assessment. It wasn't as involved as what we did this time. So we wanted to get more data, more information this time around. So we went back to that 2008 assessment, took those sites that at that time looked like they'd be moderate to high for erosion, and those were our primary sites that we did this time around. We got to 57 of them. There was one site that we were not able to do. We went out to it multiple times, I think 3 times to look at it. There's an upstream dam from that site, so each time we went, the water was too backed up to do the assessment, to get the appropriate measurements. Our measurements would have been off. They wouldn't have really been useful. So we continue. We're going to still go out there. We found it, the first time at the, before we were actually going out and doing the inventories, the first time we went to go look at the sites to see if they were even accessible, it looked good then. So we know that it is possible to get that site. So we're just going to keep monitoring it over time, and when it's finally back to the level that we can monitor it, we'll go out and do those assessments. We also developed a procedure to prioritize and inventory the additional road stream crossings. There are, I believe, 500 almost. Oh, sorry. No, 500, 566. And we have a 10-year plan, and if on average we do about 50 a year, we can meet that 10-year plan. So far, this summer is our newest inventory cycle since the grant. So the grant is closed out, but this summer we're working in South Branch of the Macatawa watershed. South Branch was one of the top, the top sub-watershed for bank erosion. So we're starting there, and then we'll go to North Branch, which is ranked number 2, and that's how we've decided to prioritize those top sites. So then hopefully in 10 years we can get all of them done. And we also have created, MyCorps has created a database, an access database, and all the sites that we did do, that information has been inputted into this database, which kind of runs like a model, and it's given us scores for these sites, and then those we will give to the drain commissioner, water resource commissioner, and both road commissions. Those can be very helpful, especially if there are road projects coming up in the future. And we've already done an assessment on the culvert or the bridge crossing, and those could be useful. So we will be giving that data out. I know you're always kind of interested in also where the funds come from. MyCorps, they just under $7,000 came from MyCorps, and that paid for our staff time, most of the equipment, mileage for driving to all the sites, because that does add up. Also, Kelly and I went to a MyCorps conference to talk about our program this past fall, so they paid for the conference fees with lodging and registration. And then the MACC match was just over $8,000, and volunteer time match is $3,000, so that's kind of a nice part because it's not really out of pocket. It's that volunteer time added in that we can count as match, and then a little bit for staff time, and then a few things with equipment. And so the overall total was about $15,000. And then this goes on to you. So, but any questions about the road stream crossings? We're going to still continue to inventory, and then over time we're going to look at those assessments that we get, the score that each site gets, and those high priority sites, we're going to continue to go back and monitor and prioritize those as time goes by. Yeah, so it was a really fun way to get outside, and we've learned a lot about our area and our crossings. So, without any other questions, I'll pass it over to Kelly. There you go.
All right, thanks, Carolyn. Good job. So we also closed out our SAW grant, the Stormwater Asset Management and Wastewater Grant, also in May. So we had the 2 grants that were ending at the same time. So this was a 3-year grant project. I've got the dollars up there. This one was fairly straightforward in terms of the match. Whatever we expended, 10% had to be held back as match, and we requested 90% reimbursement. So it was kind of nice to handle a grant that way because we didn't actually have to keep track of everything we were doing as match. We just took 10% off the top, that's our match, and was actually a very nice way to do accounting on a grant. So the deliverable for this was a stormwater management plan that all assembled filled 2 3-ring binders. So I hand delivered that to Lansing the day before it was due. I was on my way to Detroit anyway for a conference, so that worked out well. In your packets, you received a copy of the table of contents of what was in that plan. So we talked about the watershed management plan last month. There were quite a few elements of the watershed management plan that were required in the SAW stormwater management plan. So we did a lot of copying and pasting, but some modifications to make it fit the stormwater criteria as opposed to the overall watershed that's dealt with in the other plan. So this is just specific to the stormwater issues in the watershed. So again, we made some modifications, but took a lot of that same information from the watershed management plan, so we didn't have to recreate everything. So this is actually the introductory, kind of the narrative portion of the SAW stormwater management plan. So I'll pass this around if anybody wants to take a look at that. So that's the part that we kind of wrote as the intro narrative. There's a lot of maps in there, tables and charts to kind of summarize the watershed condition and what our goals are. And then the bulk of the plan is the stormwater permits from our 6 stormwater permitted entities, the City of Holland, City of Zeeland, the 2 county road commissions, and then the 2 counties. So that's what really took up the bulk of these 2 3-ring binders, were all of the components. There's 7 components times 6 entities. It's a lot of paperwork. And it was very surreal for me to put all of that together and kind of see the last 3 years of my life there in binders. And Carolyn put a lot of time into it too. So it was a very surreal moment to actually see all that work printed, because most of it we try to do digital and we share it digitally rather than have so much printed material. So then the final piece to this that was kind of an extra but goes along with the stormwater permits and was a required element is to have best management practice maintenance recommendations. So we put together this stormwater best management practice operation and maintenance planning guide. So this is designed for people to actually use to write an operation and maintenance plan. So this is, how do you write an operation maintenance plan for stormwater controls? And that could be anything from your traditional controls of storm sewer systems with catch basins to green infrastructure like rain barrels and rain gardens and bioswales and permeable pavement. So the maintenance guidelines are all in here, including checklists for doing inspections, and kind of a rundown of basic maintenance procedures. And this is not the whole thing, this is just the intro. There's appendices that go with it. But again, I wanted to have it here so you guys could kind of take a look. So Carolyn spent quite a bit of time on this with me as well. But the ultimate goal of this document is that it would supplement the requirements for maintenance agreements. Once the MS4 stormwater permits are approved, there will be new development standards at the county level that they will be asking the townships to implement and require maintenance agreements. And then this document will help your developers and contractors put together a maintenance plan that goes along with that maintenance agreement. So it makes the enforcement of those maintenance agreements much easier when they have a plan to follow, and then it's, are you following your plan or not? Makes it a lot easier for that enforcement. So really the intended users of this are private developers, contractors that are putting together maintenance plans for those stormwater controls for private developments. Certainly could be used for public developments as well. A lot of our, like the city and the county, have these types of stormwater controls at their facilities, so they can certainly use this guide for their own operation and maintenance of stormwater controls at their facilities. So just kind of a few other things here. We did receive our final payment on this grant. It really is not final yet though, because we're waiting to get comments back on the plan itself. But financially we're completed. We've met our obligations. We've received our final payment from the state. We're just waiting on comments back from the state on the stormwater management plan, which it comes from 2 different departments in the Department of Environmental Quality. the revolving loans section is where the grant came from, and then it also has to be reviewed by the stormwater staff. So that process could take a while before we receive those comments back. And then in that kind of waiting period, we are still continuing to work with the stormwater permitted entities to update components. A lot of what we sent in with their permit components are draft. They're not final. We've received comments back on some of them. So we're working through updates to, say, the illicit discharge elimination programs. But we're waiting on comments on their post-construction development standards. So we're kind of, there's a lot of components going on here. There's a lot of pieces and parts and timelines, and so this will be ongoing for a while. It won't be final until those permits are actually issued, those stormwater permits, which could be a year or two realistically down the road yet. So we'll continue to work with this, and really the SAW grant helped to supplement something that we had to do anyway, so it eased the burden of MACC expenses. But any questions about the SAW grant? We don't have a nice fancy fact sheet about it like we do the road stream crossing. But
Could you explain how the BMP maintenance would be applicable? Let's say there's a development under construction, the streets are public, but they haven't been turned over to the road commission yet. Does the developer have responsibilities for maintenance? Do they go beyond public acceptance of the public roads? And then how would it work on private roads after construction is done and the lots are all sold?
Right, well, that would be handled at the township level through the township approval. I can't think of the term now. When it goes to the planning commission, for planning commission approval, that would be part of it there. It would be the township that would have that maintenance agreement with that private development. That would then also be reviewed and approved by the county water resource or drain commissioner. But it would be up to the local municipality to enforce that maintenance agreement on whatever that stormwater control happens to be that would fall under the maintenance agreement. I mean, if it's going to be incorporated into a county drain district, then that's completely different. So these are just for controls that stay in the private ownership or private hands, essentially. Wouldn't have any county right-of-way associated with them. But again, it's coming down the pike here. We've talked about it. I've kind of hinted at it, but we're like I said, we're kind of in this limbo where the county has this new set of standards that basically recommends that maintenance agreements be enforced at the township level, but we're waiting to get those comments from the DEQ before we move forward too quickly, because if the DEQ changes something, the county doesn't want to come back to all the townships and say, okay, now we have to change it again. So kind of stay tuned on more details there, and as soon as the county's ready to move forward, we'll probably start meeting either individually or as groups with the municipalities that fall in the urbanized area where these maintenance agreements would be applicable.
Just for clarification for some of us, SAW, SAW, and MS4, could you just clarify what those stand
sorry. So SAW is the Stormwater Asset Management and Wastewater. So that's the name of the grant program. And then MS4 is Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So there's the 4 S's there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, so that's, certain municipalities within urbanized areas that have, that own and operate storm sewer systems that are separate from the sanitary system would qualify as MS4s. So the City of Holland, City of Zeeland, the counties, and the road commissions qualify. Okay. Any other questions about that? Okay. So somewhat related to all of that, especially when we get into talking about stormwater controls and maintenance agreements, a lot of that may be green stormwater infrastructure. And with the new county development standards that are still draft and under review, we hope that the new standards will make it much more open and friendly to developers incorporating green stormwater infrastructure into their site designs, which really is anything that manages stormwater in place, keeps it out of the storm drain system. So since we want to encourage the use of more green stormwater infrastructure, a big part that needs to happen before we do that is the public education, so that the developers, the engineers understand green stormwater infrastructure, that the reviewers, the planners that are looking at these site designs understand the green infrastructure. So we put together this green stormwater infrastructure seminar in partnership working with the City of Holland and then the two county drain and water resource commissioners' offices. So it will be August 22nd, 9 to 3:30 at the Hayworth Inn and Conference Center in downtown Holland. We've got some exhibitors signed up, ready to go, that sell different products related to green stormwater infrastructure, some that are inline treatments, some that are kind of above ground, the more traditional green infrastructure. Project Clarity is a prime sponsor for this event, so that's certainly been a huge help in getting our costs down. So we've been able to offer it as a very affordable single-day seminar. We will also offer professional development hours for professional engineers. They're required to have so many hours, I think 30 hours over a 2-year period, so they can get 3.5 hours credit by coming to this event. So that should certainly help increase the attractiveness of the event. At the conclusion of the seminar, we'll have an optional walking tour. Hope College has used some green infrastructure on campus, some recent installations at the Jack H. Miller and then the new Student Center, so we'll be able to walk from the Hayworth Inn and see some of that. The seminar itself, we're going to have a morning workshop with Don Carpenter from Lawrence Tech University and Dan Christian from Tetra Tech, a private consulting firm, who I would dare say are probably our two state experts in green stormwater infrastructure. So it really is kind of a dream team to have together to do this workshop for us. In the afternoon, after lunch, we'll talk a little bit about this green infrastructure vision that we're working on developing for the Macatawa watershed. And then we're going to have a panel discussion from some different representatives to talk about drivers for using infrastructure and some of the barriers that you have to overcome. So we'll have a representative from the City of Grand Rapids who has really embraced the use of green infrastructure, from Meyer corporate headquarters, who again, Meyer is starting to use more green infrastructure as they site new facilities or redesign existing facilities. We'll have a representative from an engineering firm that will kind of talk about why green infrastructure is being used at the residential scale. And then we'll actually have an installer of green roofs to talk about his experience and why people are installing green roofs. So that should be a really great panel discussion to kind of wrap up the day before we head out on the tour. So we have done some advertisement of this. Registrations are slowly coming in. We'd really like to have a lot more people there. Individual invitations were sent to all of your board of trustees, city councils, planning commissions. We sent them to the, I think to all the county commissioners as well. I don't think we sent them to all the road commissioners, but should have, as policy members, hopefully you received an invitation from us. It certainly would be appropriate for staff as well, road commission staff, planning staff, to attend. Anybody that's doing reviews or may possibly be incorporating green infrastructure into facility designs perhaps. So I encourage you all to attend, encourage you to encourage your colleagues to attend, and help us spread the word if you can. We have the flyers, little postcards you received in your packets. We can get you more of those if you want to hand them out. I think what we had mailed was a little bit different. But any questions about the seminar? We'd love to see you all there. So. Okay.
Thank you, Kelly. I think next up we have Steve. You can fill us in on changes to the DIP program.
Yes, we received a request from the Michigan Department of Transportation to make an amendment to the FY 18 year of our current TIP, which runs from FY 17 to 20. What they've requested is to add some general program accounts, or GPAs as we call them. These are accounts that contain funding, but a specific project has not been identified for them yet. So this is just a way to help prepare the department for when a project is identified, then there's already funding identified in the TIP for it, and they can proceed in a timely manner. So as the memo that was included in your agenda packet on this item indicates, we have some GPAs for fiscal year 2018 already in the TIP, and then there are 5 additional ones that they are looking to add today. And you'll see the work descriptions talk about working doing bridge preservation or doing highway rehab and reconstruction or preservation work. That may be capital preventive maintenance work or things of that nature. And then, did I start doing that? Got a mind of its own? Better just put that down. That's me doing that. So what's noted there are various amounts for those various different GPAs that have been identified. So again, why you see is a location is just area-wide is because a specific project has not been identified, so there isn't a location identified with it yet. So we coming forward with this amendment for your consideration. I didn't note in the memo, but the technical committee has had a chance to review this as well and recommends your approval. So Leanne and Steve are here to answer any questions that you might have regarding that, if there are any. Otherwise, a motion to revise the FY 2018 program of the MACC 2017 to 2020 TIP to reflect these GPAs would be appreciated.
So moved.
Support. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Also included in your agenda packet is a memo regarding a request that we received from the Ottawa County Planning Department regarding financially participating in an effort to add 1 foot of paved shoulder to Lakeshore Drive. If you had a chance to look at the memo that was included in that, along with the memo, there was a map. The Ottawa County Road Commission has been making improvements on Lakeshore Drive. Howard and I were talking before the meeting. They had done a section of Lakeshore Drive in Port Sheldon Township back in 2015. That was from Croswell south from Butternut south to New Holland. And they're continuing in that program, doing another section of Port Sheldon this year, and then coming into Park Township, beginning, as the map indicates, in 2018. They're working their way from north to south on Lakeshore Drive through Park Township. And the intent here is to add that additional foot of pavement. Ottawa County, as they're doing resurfacing of primary roads, as a matter of policy, has been adding 3-foot paved shoulders, I believe, Tom, to most of those as they're going along. However, due to the nature of this particular roadway, and I think you're all familiar with Lakeshore Drive, there's a picture of it here. This happens to be a photo taken just north of New Holland and Port Sheldon after they've done the resurfacing there. I mean, Lakeshore, I think we could all agree, is a rather iconic roadway in our community. It is certainly a regional corridor, both for motorists as well as non-motorized users. It's used by tour groups. It's used by short ride cyclists as well. And so certainly it's been identified as kind of a priority or a regional corridor in the MACC non-motorized plan. So certainly it has standing in that regard. And so making an improvement like the one being proposed certainly does make sense. And you had a chance to look at the chart. It's up on the slide here as well. The MACC is not the only entity that's being approached to help provide the funding to get this additional foot of shoulder. The chart here represents the expenditure to do the entire length of Lakeshore in Park Township. So the fundraising or the estimate that came from, Danielle, it came from Ottawa County Road Commission, right? This, yep. Total here of $211,116. So that's to do all the miles shown in the map there. And Ottawa County Parks Commission has been approached already and has pledged to provide a share of the funding. Their 3-year total was $54,000 or $18,000 annually for that. Ottawa County Commissioners are going to be taking up this request as well, although I'm speaking with Joe, it's not happening at your meeting tomorrow, it's happening in August. Okay, on the 8th. Yep. As part of the capital improvement program that the county boards have been taking a look at, so they're being asked for a similar amount. And then Park Township also being asked for a total of $54,000 over those 3 projects as well, $18,000 a year. And then the MACC has been approached to provide $5,000 a year or $15,000 in total. That represents about 7% of the total cost that's been estimated there. Some private donors would be approached to help fund a small portion of it as well. And then county planning has put in a request to the Holland-Zeeland Community Foundation, and I don't believe they've heard on that yet, but it's in this current grant cycle, so we're thinking sometime in August there'll be a response to that request as well for 14.2% of it there, roughly $30,000. So that is the request that's before us. The amount, the first payment of this would come out of our next fiscal year, FY18. It was not budgeted for. However, I sat down with Elise and we said, well, how could we make this work within the line item for non-motorized that we have in our budget? And we think we can make some adjustments on what we're doing with the Clean Air Action Program this year that would free up enough resources to be able to do this to meet the request of $5,000 in FY18 without needing to make a budget revision in that regard. So we think we can get it done within what's been budgeted there. And as you noted here, staff's recommendation is, I think, is to be a partner in this, given this is a regional corridor, and that's been identified in the non-motorized plan to participate in this. We would do that for FY18, and then the motion that we have for you is an intent to continue to do so in 20 and 21. And then in that manner, I would go ahead and build it into the budget. So any questions regarding that? We've got Danielle and it's Shannon, correct? With us as well that can answer any questions you may have regarding it.
Jerry.
Steve, thank you. First question, did the MACC contribute towards the Port Sheldon portion?
We did not, but we were also not asked.
We welcome you to participate in this one. Certainly, we've got 4 new board members, and as I discussed with you last week, we hit with this in November, within the week of them taking office, because it's the majority of our board. They heard about it during our budget process, and next month we're going to act on it. I've not heard anybody that didn't support it. Obviously, you got to be careful in saying what the board's going to do, but I'm confident that we're going to support. We think this is a very high priority, very important. That being said, we want to make sure we get 4 feet. Okay? Did we get 4 feet in Port Sheldon?
Most areas, there were some areas where they could not get the 4 feet.
Okay. So we think it's a very important project. It's also important that we get to 4 feet for the safety reasons. And in Park Township, there's even some areas where I don't think we even have a shoulder right now. So this can be a huge improvement. And it's unbelievable, the people that ride. Certainly the professional riders. We've heard from the bike clubs as we worked on our Ottawa County corridor. We met with them, and they were very helpful there. They brought this up to us going back a year and a half, 2 years ago, how important it is to them. But I think even the casual riders, I think it's important. So let's hope that it's supported all the way.
And probably some tourists too. Go ahead.
Got a question for Joe. Do you have any idea where your board sits for this? Or?
I really, at this point, don't. It's in the CIP, so I don't think it will be an issue.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to make it retroactive to 2015 for part of Port Sheldon share, I'm good with that.
Plunkett, what happens or if one of the entities does not support it? Let's say, for example, any one of those entities does not support it, what happens?
Well, the motion that I'm about to read commits this board to a specific number. So I don't know, maybe we can ask Danielle or Shannon to chime in on that regarding what happens if there's a shortfall in the fundraising.
Well, in the past, what we've done is, in the past, we've just opened up a public campaign when we couldn't get that extra foot of paved shoulder back in 2015, and we were able to raise $60,000 in 3 weeks just through a private online campaign. So if it comes down to it, Lake Shore is pretty important, so we're going to try to get the funding.
A couple comments over here. I know, was that a GoFundMe page or something back in 2015? I think that's important to have. Even maybe some of these numbers can be lowered. If people are pretty passionate about that, they did a lot of private contributions.
So we should be thinking about a motion that says up to 5,000, and then if they're successful on the private donor line item, it can reduce the other participants' contributions.
That's how I feel, instead of, mostly public dollars here. See what the private donations are.
I hear what you're saying, and I knew that the Port Sheldon portions was significantly more private sector money. I didn't know it was that much. I knew it was large.
I just don't see that as a very big goal there, 1,300.
We're going to go to the board with what the request is,
Yeah.
and they're going to ask, where's everybody else? And by then you will not have that, because you're going to August. Well, we meet on the 10th.
I think with...
If we put this not to exceed thing, I'd like to think we could just agree if some generous person out there, and I think a major portion of that 50,000 she just mentioned came from an individual, if I recall right. And I don't know if that individual is going to be there with a checkbook. I don't want to make this complicated for our board. And
I agree with you, Jerry. I think if we, as a board, can just agree to approve this as is, there's nothing stopping them from also raising private dollars if they want to. And if they come in higher, we'll deal with it.
And certainly if the contributions exceed what the cost is going to be, the $211,000, whatever it was, I'm sure we aren't going to get a bill for more than what the cost was. Then
Right.
I think the county planning, Mr. Sack we met with, is overseeing this. I'd assume that they would proportion it back equally based on percentage of the contributions. So we also got the foundation there that hasn't made a decision yet.
Yeah, totally in support of getting a 4-foot shoulder on there. I rode that from here out there already. It's tight on bicycle, riding that area. I guess my question comes in, are we setting a precedence here with the MACC contributing on this area instead of how many other entities do you have here? And you're committing to 3 years on this already. I guess that's my only question is what precedence are you setting by doing it?
Yeah, and that issue came up when the executive committee was taking a look at it as well, because that was a concern I had. I spoke with Elisa about that a bit and said, given the nature of this particular corridor and the prominence that it has, and that it's been identified as a regional corridor, it's part of U.S. Bicycle Route 35 and so forth, that it has kind of a special place in our area in terms of its status. So in that regard, but I think certainly if we do this, we are going to be looking at the possibility of other requests in the future, and we'll have to take those, I think, on a case-by-case basis.
I can say one thing too, Todd, is the county board, when we took this up 2-3 years ago, we designated 2 areas are the only 2 corridors that we're going to put money into as a county. And one is Lake Shore, the other is Leonard. because we looked at it as, oh, well, Holland Township wants to do 4 foot, or Georgetown Township wants to do 4 foot, or Talmadge, or Chester. All of a sudden, we could be spending in excess of $40 million on 4 foot shoulders on every major road. So we as a board at that time had decided that we were going to look just at these 2 corridors. So.
And I think from the MAC's perspective, any request that came in would be vetted against our non-motorized plan. And where does that corridor stack up in that document and so forth?
So if these donations come in higher than expected, and you get more than that 211,000, so where does that extra money go then? If we give the 5,000, if donations come in higher than what the budgeted amount, where does that extra money go to?
I'd like to hope that these percentages see here would get that extra money divvied back on those percentages, if we have that problem.
And at the front end, now I can't speak for the planning, but if bids come in lower, I mean, this 211 is an estimate as well, so if bids came in lower and so forth, and the first phase of this, because there's going to be basically 3 phases to it, I'm assuming there could be some rollover as well, that the county would be willing to play banker and keep that funding and apply it to the next project and so forth. Is that fair to say that you'd be willing to do something like that?
Is this a continuation of the actual Michigan bike route going through that area, or is it?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Bike route 35?
35, okay. Well, like I say, when I ride at Pentwater and everything else, and it's the pits up there, so whatever we can do in this area to make us look good is fine, I have no problem. I just want to make sure on the precedence of where I was at with it, so.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, contribute up to $5,000 in fiscal year 2018 towards the construction of a 4 foot paved shoulder along Lakeshore Drive with the intent of making a similar contribution in fiscal year 2020 and 21.
Support. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Dave, for reading the full thing out. And thank you, Steve. It is an important part of our community, so thank you. Okay, so up next, we have the 2018 Clean Air Action Program, and Carolyn will be giving us an update on this topic that we love so much.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a little bit of just an overview of what we've done this season and then what we're planning for 2018 as well. So in 2017, so far in this kind of spring-summer season, we've been going to quite a few different, we've been going to, oh, actually, sorry, I'm going to back up. I just got so excited about telling you about this community event. Back in January, we have an annual luncheon that we do every year, and we've been doing that in Grand Rapids. It's kind of a central meeting location, and it takes place one of our quarterly meetings. And that's always a great event. We have local meteorologists that come to that luncheon as well, presentations, and then every so often, I think Lisa, is about every 5 years there's a survey that we do. And so this year was a survey year, so we got to hear about some of the results. It was still very positive, an overwhelming percentage of people did say that they were aware of what Clean Air Action Days were. They were even asked to write out what they thought it was to make sure that they actually did know, and they pretty much always were right on. So that's great news. But for the most part, we're still having a hard time with 18 to about 30-year-olds, my generation. And so we were kind of, we've been strategizing how do we bring these younger ones in. So that was a big part of the conversation at that luncheon. And then we talked a little bit about some technical standard kind of things and new legal stuff around the program that's not as fun to talk about. This spring and summer, we've been going to a lot of local community events and then also some of the government offices. We've already been to some of yours and have more planned for the rest of the summer. I have a photo here of when we were at the Grasscup Fire Station Pancake Breakfast on 4th of July. It's one of my favorite events that we go to. It's a little slice of Americana. And at this event, it's not very far from where I grew up, so I always see neighbors, and my parents always come, so it's always a fun one. Always have good conversations with people about it. And it's always a fun one because I get to throw out a kind of a quiz question for everyone because it's 4th of July. And I always ask them, do you know what day out of the year has the highest particulate matter? And it's 4th of July. So there's even an online streaming meter that you can see real time, and you can start seeing around 8 o'clock. It starts to spike, and it doesn't come back down until about 2 to 3 a.m. And the first, the couple days around the 4th of July are always really high, but that's the highest day of the entire year. So it's kind of fun. So this year we've had 3 Clean Air Action Days. You might remember it was June 10, 11, and 12. They were very warm days. I remember I was out of town, I was in the Chicago area, but it was very hot. And, especially in a big metropolitan area like I was in, it was definitely, you could feel it was hard to breathe. So our newest standard, the standard came down a while back. If you remember, it used to be 75 parts per billion. It's dropped to 70, so anything above that will kind of sound, red flag. So on June 10, it was 75 parts per billion. That was the highest of that day. On the 11th, 74 parts per billion, and then on the 12th, 78 parts per billion. So those were the highest of those days. So we did go over the 70 that were allowed. But only 3 so far this summer, which really isn't that bad. So we're doing good so far. We've had some hot days, but we always try to stress to the community that it's not just because it's a hot day. You have to have the correct type of wind direction and other atmospheric conditions going on to make that ozone happen. And we get a lot of transport in our area. I always like to tell people Lake Michigan's like a giant easy bake oven. It's a very reflective surface, and that's why we can get higher numbers here on the lakeshore. I encourage you, if you haven't already, to inform yourselves and your families about Clean Air Action Days. You can go on to deqmiair.org and you can sign up for the EnviroFlash. You can either get a text message or an email. I prefer the email. And that way you will know that it's a Clean Air Action Day. And you'll know early. Usually they'll send out alerts the day before, so then you can plan your day accordingly and make some changes. Maybe not mow the lawn the next day. Make sure to maybe fuel up the car early in the morning or late at night. Not when it's cooler out and you're not affecting that as much. Really wait to the end of the day is best, if you can. There's always those actions. For 2018, especially at our last meeting, we kind of sat around the table and we thought, especially from things that we learned from the survey this past time around, what things do we want to do in 2018? We first of all want to update the West Michigan Clean Air Action Coalition website. We think it was probably early 2000s that was developed, and it's looking a little outdated. And I think that also plays into the part with also grabbing the 18 to 30-year-olds. I know myself, I've been on the website, and it's very, you can't really figure out where to go. It's old, and it's not the easiest to use. We know that we can probably come up with a new website. They're relatively inexpensive. They're easy to make now with new software and programming. So we're going to try to come up with a new website that's clean, attractive, and easy to use. We also have been trying to tie the air quality conversation more towards human health. People, of course, love to help the environment, but to also, I think it's much more of a motivation to let people know that it is affecting our health. Especially if you have a family member with asthma or any other kind of lung conditions. If you do, you know that they have a harder time on those days. And I always kind of see it as it's our part of being a good neighbor by doing these activities to limit our pollution that day, because you're being a good neighbor. You're helping that person. You're helping them breathe a bit better. So trying to tie that in a bit more. Again, finding new ways to reach the 18 to 30-year-olds. I myself do not have cable television. That's a big outlet, especially morning news stations. I also don't really listen to the radio. I might listen to an application that has music coming through it. Or I really like the Hope College radio station. They've got good music. So I don't really listen to those traditional outlets. So trying to figure out how do you reach those people that you can't normally in those traditional methods, which are really effective for certain populations. And then we also kind of identified at the luncheon that there is this group of people that they don't have the ability to take an action because they don't have those actions to take. Especially if you have a college student at home, you might know that maybe they live in the dorm. They don't have a car. They don't have a lawn to maintain. They ride the bus, or maybe they ride their bike. And that's very true, if you're younger and you live in an apartment, or if you're older. We also have retirees that you're not going to work every day, so you're not driving and polluting. Maybe you live in an association where you don't take care of your lawn. So we're trying to find a way to engage people that, in a way, they're doing everything already, but how can it make it feel like they're a part of it still, and that they can take an action. So, yep, that's kind of the wrap up for the Clean Air Action Coalition update. If you have any questions, let me know. And if you are interested in the survey, we can always email that to you with the full results. If you'd like that, just let me know.
Okay, no questions for Carolyn, then we'll move on to Lisa will update us on the West Train Collaborative.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have had a busy month with meetings, and one of which was West Train, which I wanted to just give you a few highlights on what's new with regard to the Pere Marquette. First of all, it's good news. Ridership is up 4.5%, and revenue, which Amtrak is obviously concerned with, is up 9.2%. This is a good thing for the Pere Marquette, and I think all Michigan lines as well did quite well this last year compared to last year. And on the screen, I've got two items here that I thought would be good for you to be aware of. Smart student savings, so all students with an ID can get 15% off of their train ticket. And then apparently there's an even better discount if you have someone who's college bound and visiting schools, and you take that student with you, you can get I believe it's up to 20% off. And then this right here, you might have seen not far from here on US 31, there was a billboard which with these same graphics, so that if you book early, you can save 20% off of your fare. There's a lot going on to promote rail along the Pere Marquette. That's the purpose of West Train. And years ago, West Train decided to pool together resources in order to do more marketing. And Amtrak has since taken that back. So on this next slide, I wanted to inform you all of a new website, which is Amtrak.com Michigan, where we go. And so Amtrak is now stepping in to promote rail in Michigan. And they've actually found that this has been very effective, and they've had a lot of traffic to their website. So it's great for us because no longer do the local units of government have to contribute financially, but you can recognize this nice little banner on the website. Downtown Holland is featured, and there are future opportunities for community events. So West Train is looking for your suggestions. If you have any community events that you'd like featured on the website, let me know and I'll share that information. So I mentioned the student discounts already, but I also wanted to let you know that West Train is talking about events, and the Michigan Department of Transportation has been meeting with organizers of the Senior PGA Championship, and I believe that's in Harbor Shores, to talk about event packages. So that's new and different. They haven't finalized that, but they are looking at how they can get people to that location quickly and easily through train packages that would include hotel as well. So those of us from the MACC area were thinking with our eyes wide open, thinking, wow, this is amazing. This would be great for Tulip Time Art Prize. So that conversation is happening, but certainly an opportunity in the future. So it's important to just to express that that's something that could be in our future. And then one thing that we've also talked about is the last mile. So people take the train, they arrive at the station, and yet they may not have a rental, a car rental already planned. So how do they get around? And Amtrak has been talking with Lyft, and they have a new partnership. So that certainly makes it a lot easier for people once they get to their destination. And we've also, talked in the past about being able to bring your bike up on board to provide that access as well. So these are a few of the highlights. And then during our meeting, we also learned about a project which I really wanted to make sure that you're aware of, the Midwest Regional Rail Plan. And this map is a little hard to read, but we are right here, and you can see just the magnitude of the study. The study began in January and continues through June of next year, looking into the next 40 years. But the purpose of this project is to prioritize corridors and investment projects. There will be multiple scenarios run for the Michigan network. So it's something I'd like to report back to you, but I just wanted to make sure you're aware that it's happening on, quite a large scale. Oops. All right, so before I move on to non-motorized, are there any questions about West Train?
Nancy, did you have a question?
I had talked to the Amtrak people at the conference for mayors about having a couple runs for Tulip Time back and forth to Chicago and for Art Prize. I don't know if we can run things from Holland to Grand Rapids back and forth, or if we have to always go all the way. I don't know. But they seem much more flexible and much more willing to talk about the experience and designing things to fit events and all of that. So I think promoting what we have to offer now is really smart. So thank you. Yeah, the more times they hear it from different directions, the better chance we have of getting, and it's amazing accessibility for us to Chicago. And we're already the Chicago Riviera, so let's just play it up.
Very good to make the request, and this is a great group, West Train, because it has all the local units of government along the rail line, and MDOT and Amtrak are very active in that. So.
Hey, listen, that group that was talking about the rail plan to Detroit, is that still alive and kicking, or there was a private group that was looking at that?
Yeah, I believe that's ongoing, and that's quite a bit into the future. But that's basically, coast to coast. So now this study here that I referred to is also looking at connections. Further out, I believe one is 100% sure. I want to say St. Louis, Chicago, Michigan. But looking at some of those key connections will be important, and I'm sure that will come into play as well. So when I know more about routes that are being considered, I'll bring those back to you. All right. So would you like me to switch on over to non-motorized?
Yep, please.
Okay, so since we met last month, quite a bit's been happening with regard to non-motorized transportation. And the Michigan Department of Transportation is working on developing a plan. And I didn't know when I prepared this presentation, but Steve Redmond is the project manager, and he happens to be here. So if you have any questions for Steve, please make sure you ask him. But it was a great opportunity to be able to participate as the MACC, because we, as you all know, have our first non-motorized plan that we approved in 2014. And looking through that document, much of it is already outdated. Many of the facilities have either been constructed, or Lakeshore Drive was one of the high priority projects, and we're talking about that today. So it is exciting that together we've been able to accomplish so much. So when we were asked to be part of MDOT's non-motorized plan, we said certainly we'd love to help, and we made arrangements to host an outreach meeting at Herrick District Library on June 12th. So the plan for this process is to have an updated trail map as well as a plan document. And why I was pretty excited about is that to get that public input and be able to reach out to all of our local stakeholders, we can then use that information as well as we're updating our plan. So I would like to let all of you know that that is our intent, to meet with you individually and make sure we identify priorities as we're updating our non-motorized plan soon in the coming months. So I don't know, Steve, if you have anything you wanted to add about the non-motorized plan for MDOT, but I know it's ready to be printed soon, the trail map.
That was the one thing I was going to add, is that we're going to tie it all up in August and have both the map and the plan done and printed and online and everything else. So it's been quite an effort. I'm glad it's over. Well, out loud there. I think that what we want to do is get this out and have a lot of people know about it, because it's got a lot of useful information and data that people can use to make make decisions about non-motorized trail development and location and that kind of thing. So we're really looking forward to it, and we'll certainly work with Steve and Elisa to get the time when it's all completed to bring it here and show you what we got.
Good. Any questions for Lisa?
This is all part of the healthy package too. We talk about clean air and to promote this as a healthy region. And this is one of the reasons, and it should help us get healthier too. So that's always a good message.
Good. Well, thank you, Lisa. Up next is MDOT. I don't know if you have any additional comments or...
No, not at this time.
Okay. All right. Then next on the agenda, we have administrative issues. Steve, you want to just quick go over small modification that we're making?
Yep, so included in your agenda packet is a memo regarding those members of the board who have some banking powers, and they're enumerated there in the memo regarding this topic. Given the health status of Hannes, it was necessary to extend the banking powers to another individual. The immediate need is to have an additional co-signer. Hannes was a co-signer along with Punkage, and so our policy requires that any non-routine expenditure above $1,000 needs a co-signer. And so, we have a fair amount of those with incentives to farmers and so forth. So having a couple co-signers available all the time is important to be able to get those done in a timely manner. And given the situation with Hannes, it was necessary to, the impetus for this was to find another individual so we could have another co-signer. However, we do have it set up in terms of with the bank. There are a number of powers banking powers that come with this position, and they're noted in the memo there. They can open deposits, or they can make deposits on accounts that the MACC has. They can endorse checks and orders for payment. That I was just speaking to, that co-signer function. They can, for the purpose of renting or maintaining a safe deposit box. We don't have that currently, but that's something they would have a power to do. So those are the four individuals that could do those powers, and then I would be designated as the secretary, and then Chris Brown, our finance manager, has no banking powers but has access to all the records of the financial records of the MACC. So that is the request that's being made today, to add David Van Ginhoven to the list of persons who would have those powers as noted in the memo.
Sure.
Question. Basically, the change is adding Dave, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Steve.
Yep, included in your agenda packet was the monthly report. This is through June, which for our fiscal year is 3/4 of the way through the financial year or fiscal year, where revenues stand at 55.7%. Expenditures are at 45.5%. Be happy to answer any questions regarding the financial report. If there are none of those, summary of the last executive committee meeting earlier this month was included in the packet. Be happy to answer any questions regarding that report. All right.
I think Steve, oh, you're going to announce the MACC holding meeting?
That's right. So per the bylaws of the MACC Holding Inc. Board of Directors, I'm required, or we are required, to announce when we are going to have our annual meeting at least 30 days in advance. And it is my intent to have that annual meeting of the MACC Holding Inc. Board of Directors immediately following our next policy committee meeting. If you represent a city or a township, you are on the MACC Holding Inc. board. So this is the title holding company that holds the building for the MACC, and so we'll sit down next month and I'll give you an update on things that are happening with the physical properties that the MACC owns. And certainly, hopefully, all of you can make it to that who are on the board. We will try very hard, as in the last couple of years, to keep this meeting a little bit shorter and try to keep things moving on that board of directors meeting so that we're wrapping it up around 1:30. So that's my pledge to you. That is our intent, to try to keep the timetable to those constraints. So.
And the date that's going to be?
What's that?
I don't think you told us the date, or I missed it.
It's going to be immediately following our next policy meeting, which is August 28th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Steve. We're now turn the mic over to Todd. Todd, thank you for hosting us, and maybe if you want to bring us up to speed on all the good things going on in Olive Township.
Things are fairly quiet out here, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Welcome to Olive Township, I guess. And this year we're in the process of working with the road commission on repaving some existing paved roads that we had. I think a couple miles of working with them on our 12th and Polk Street. Trying to build these roads up from the 1.5 inch up to a 3-inch base. Back in the day, we used to do a lot of 1.5 inch roads, and as everybody knows, they don't hold up real well. So now we're kind of chipping in on that to help bring those up to speed. And we're actually doing an improvement on Polk Street. There's a mile there we're looking at, it's half paved. We're going to extend it down to the next intersection. We did a few miles of gravel program again this year. So, but otherwise, it's pretty quiet out here. It's kind of nice. Our last 2 meetings have been in a half hour, so.
Are you seeing residential development, like, say, Zealand Charter Township or Holland? Or?
No, we don't have a lot of new developments
Not as
coming
much.
in. We have a few of them that are finishing up out on, but not a ton of, 20, 30 permits,
Okay.
I think typically, so.
All right. Well, thank you, Todd. Any comments from any members? Jerry?
I'd just like to highlight a very exciting thing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're excited, and I think it's very important for Park Township, but also the neighboring areas, and that is on Monday. We're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. Park Township will become a participant in MACC Transit Dial-A-Ride. Nice. Something we've been working on for about 3.5 years, and significant assistance from Steve and his staff, but also the MACC board, our former board and our current board. I think this is huge, but probably bigger than a lot of people stop to think about. But I think it will bring opportunities not only for our people, for sure, but also people in Holland Charter Township, the city, and Zeeland, who now will be able to come into Park Township if they get a doctor, a lawyer, a relative, go to the beach, whatever. So we're excited about it.
No, it's great news. It's great news. And
Just to reiterate, from the MACC board, we're really excited as well, and looking forward to the next 3 years, hopefully, that things progress.
And make it permanent.
And, make it permanent at that point. So.
yeah, thanks everyone for all the hard work on your end, and as well as the township and the MACC board. So great news. If there's no other issues, next meeting August 28, 2017, at the Riley Street Fire Station at noon. So Holland Charter Township will be hosting us. If there's no other issues or anything else, then we'll take a motion to adjourn. Okay. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thanks.